People who are no longer best friends with someone. What happened?
Before we continue with the video, please hit a subscribe, likes, and comments to make sure you don't miss our next video.
Number 20.
I'm not completely sure. Our mothers have been besties since elementary school, and they had us a month apart, while we were night and day, personality-wise, and probably should have been the complete opposite. We were besties, too, closer than sisters, from birth until we were 25. She had gotten married a few years before, moved a couple hours away and had her first baby, so naturally, our dynamic had shifted some, but I was still under the impression that we were as close as ever. The night she called and told me that her life had changed, she no longer had time or energy for a friendship like ours, and that she pretty much just didn't want me in her life anymore. There was no falling out, we hadn't had a fight since we were teenagers, there was nothing that I could pinpoint, then or now, that led to her decision, but it broke my heart and I grieved the loss for years after.
Number 19.
Prepaid cell phone plan. It's 18 years ago at this point, but my then best friend pocket dialed me while my phone was laying on the desk in the classroom. I was in a different part of the school working on a project. Some of the guys in the class answered the phone but didn't or forgot to hang up when they realized no one was on the other end. The call ended up lasting long enough that his rough $25 on the phone plan was used up. He ended up calling me the day after, calling me all names under the sun and where I could go to fuck myself. I had no fucking idea what he was on about, and when he explained that his phone plan had been emptied, I offered to just pay it back. Got told to fuck off. Never talked to him since. I even met him at a train station a few years later, smiled and waved at him. He literally turned around and walked away, waiting for the next train instead of taking the same train as me. I guess our friendship was only worth $25 to him.
Number 18.
I had a friend, who I considered a best friend at the time, we were in high school, come over to my house, and we decided to play around outside. She was running around and doing flips, and when she ran back to me, I noticed she was missing one of her plugs. She had gauged her ears. When I mentioned it to her, she freaked out and had us looking for it in the dark. It was night time. After a few minutes of searching, we couldn't find it and decided it was a lost cause to keep searching. She then got in my face, demanding $50 so she can buy a new one. I told her no, that's not gonna happen, and she flipped out at me. While she was yelling in my face, I thought about all the times she was a shitty friend to me, and I realized that I didn't want this person in my life anymore.
Number 17.
Over 10 years of friendship. We traveled together, worked together, he was the best man at my wedding. We were best friends, the kind of friend you could call any time of day or night, and he'd be there to help. I was there for him through difficult times and vice versa. Then he met his now wife. Suddenly any gatherings at my house, they couldn't attend because she was always sick from something she ate. She was from a wealthy family, the kind that literally owns a small island, and lived in an affluent neighborhood. It's not like I was poor or lived in a bad neighborhood, but by comparison, I'm sure the very thought of her being in my part of town made her sick. Anyway, I moved overseas, received a save the date for their wedding, but the invitation never showed up. He reached out asking if I was coming and was shocked I hadn't got the invitation as he wanted me there. But it was too late to make arrangements and a long way to travel. I received an email from him while he was on his honeymoon telling me how jealous he was of me and my career and new life overseas. I traveled back to see family and friends a little while later and tried to make arrangements to see him, but he was too busy. I was literally in the same building as him visiting old colleagues. I'm convinced his wife is the reason my invitation got lost in the mail, and that it all came out on the honeymoon, and now he can't look me in the face.
Number 16.
I had a best friend in high school. We'd known each other since we were 12, and she was the closest friend I had in my life. Junior year of high school, I mistreated her, I won't go into details, and she has hated me ever since. It's been over a decade since our friendship ended, but I miss her every day. I've never had anyone like her in my life since, nor could I want to replace her, but she quickly replaced me. I wish there was something, anything I could do to earn her forgiveness and have a second chance. But sometimes the hardest lesson in life is that screwing up once is enough to ruin everything permanently. I'll never have Jackie back in my life, but I'll always wish her the very best in hers. Don't ever take advantage of friends, because the damage can be irreparable.
Number 15.
I was in a group of friends who started bullying a person I knew out of nowhere. I told them I was not okay with that. They soon started hanging out without inviting me. I am still very glad I did what I did.
Number 14. Would bust my balls in front of attractive women to make himself look better. I was always confused because there was 0% chance of competition. There's a point where it gets old and you never look back. Number 13.
My best friend was cheating on her boyfriend, who was also my friend. I told her she had to stop, tell him, or break up with him. She continued to cheat. One day he asked me if she was seeing someone else, and I couldn't lie. Years after that we hung out a few times, but obviously it was never the same. Don't remember that last time we spoke now.
Number 12.
He became addicted to cocaine after his father died. It warped his personality, and he was constantly angry and bitter. He was unpredictable, and genuinely scared me because it felt that it would be very easy for him to do something that would ruin his life in an instant. Also refused any help offered. The only thing I could do was move on.
Number 11.
She promised me that she would pay me back if I bought the tickets for a girl's trip that she was desperate to go on. We had everything planned. I did all the work of looking and researching because that's enjoyable to me, and she hates it. She has 3 kids, and they're all smaller than mine, so I told her that I didn't mind the planning as long as when it was done we would just go and enjoy ourselves since it had been 2 years since COVID. I bought the tickets and wanted to use my new Amex Plaid for the hotel bonus points. Keep in mind she makes more money than me, $250K per year, and her husband makes $150,000. So money was not the issue. Multiple times we discussed the trip, her going on the trip, and that our husbands would hang out with the kids together while we were gone for 5 days over a long weekend plus Monday and Tuesday. When it was time to pay me back, she went dark. Refused to answer my texts. Ghosted me for weeks. Mind you, I've known her for 4+ years, and she was always kind of flaky when it came to texting. So her flakiness was not entirely new, but this is not the way you treat people, period. I finally sent a Venmo request for the portion of the trip that was hers along with the message, "Please pay me back for your portion of the trip since you will not respond to text messages or calls." She then proceeded to gaslight me and tried to tell me via text that she never agreed to go and that I was just misremembering. Kim, our husbands had a weekend planned out with the kids for when we were going to be away, so obviously, I wasn't making this up. After that I sent her a farewell and FU message and didn't look back. I took my other best friend on the trip instead. She couldn't pay me for half, but she paid for the meals and taxis instead. It was super nice, and I'm glad this cunt is out of my life.
Number 10.
We'd been best friends for 40+ years. I was always the one to run to rescue/help her, even when her husband was holding her and the damn baby at gunpoint. But she was also very critical and a bit of a snob, like her mom. She would tell me to throw out my shirt because it was too worn out, get a pedicure because my feet looked like crap, wear a different lipstick because the color looked horrible on me, etc. So one day I just decided that I needed to talk to her about how she treats me, and asked her to meet me at a restaurant near her house. I was so nervous and upset that I was already crying before I got to the restaurant. I explained that she really needs to keep her opinions to herself, be more subtle with her comments, offer to pay for pedicures for both of us, or ask if she could give me advice on something. Anything was better than what she had been doing. We left the restaurant after she apologized, gave me a hug, and we went separate ways. She called me a couple days later and said I was too negative, never heard from her again.
Number 9. I was in a horrific auto accident, coma for a week, ICU for a month. The person who was my closest friend never came to see me. When I finally got home, wheelchair bound, when he came over his first question was what kind of drugs did they give me. It was supposed to be a joke, but I told him that we're done being friends and not to come back to my house ever again. That was 17 years ago. Oh God, I'm getting old. Number 8.
Never was a great friend, bit fun to hang out with. Then he got a toxic girlfriend. We were roommates for a while, and living with her was hell. They decided to get their own place, and I came to realize how miserable I was living with them. Getting away from it showed me how bad it was. So I made a decision. I didn't want anything to do with his girlfriend. Unfortunately, since they were dating, cutting her out meant cutting him out. I've moved on, met new people, and things are starting to pick up.
Number 7.
We booked a group holiday before we all went to university. She picked the place, picked our rooms, who was sharing with who, she planned the whole itinerary. She told one of the other girls in the group she was driving the 3+ hours drive as well, didn't ask, just told her to do it. She then ditched us every night to talk on the phone with her boyfriend for 2 hours, then go to sleep without telling anyone, and was generally a controlling, moody bitch the entire trip. But the real stinker, second to last day, she suddenly says work has cancelled her next 2 days of holiday and she has to go in. We all knew she was lying. The next thing she says is she can no longer take any of us back home. The other friend who drove there wasn't going home when we were leaving, she was driving onwards to see family elsewhere. Bitch friend said the best she could do was drop the rest of us at a train station. Reminder, we were 3+ hours drive away from home, which translated to 6+ hour train journey with multiple changes. Ends up with bitch friend leaving 6 a.m. the next morning, without a word, and my other friend had to reschedule her plans to drive the rest of us 2 hours in the wrong direction to meet my poor mom, who drove 2 hours to meet us halfway at a service station on a random motorway. None of us have seen or spoken to her in over 10 years, since she left that morning.
Number 6.
I was living with my best friend. Her boyfriend told me he wanted to show me what he bought her for Christmas and that he wanted my opinion. So he trapped me in the bathroom, then attempted to shove his tongue down my throat. I kneed him in the balls. Told him I was going to tell her. Then I left to go see my boyfriend. I told my best friend later that night what happened. She believed her boyfriend over me. End of friendship. Many years later, she tries to friend me on Facebook. Are you fucking kidding me? Get bent, bitch.
Number 5.
My best friend, well, used to be best friend. We met when we were both 7. She had just moved to my town, and from that very first day, we were inseparable. Fast forward 35 years later. My oldest son passed away, and after his funeral, she and I spoke maybe a handful of times on the phone, and then, after that, nothing. That was a little over 6 years ago, and if I had to say, or give a reason as to why we don't speak to one another anymore, I guess I'd say it goes back to my son's death. She stopped calling me. A lot of people distanced themselves from me. At first I just wrote it off to people not knowing what to say to me or not knowing how to be around me during the initial grief, but as weeks turned into months, turned into years, I really struggled with loneliness and just wanting our friendship back. I'm sure, and most that grieve the loss of a child can relate, it wasn't just her avoiding a friendship with me, but I probably distanced myself quite a bit as well. It hurts not having that one friend that you used to call and tell everything to, and I'm sure the day will come when we may run into each other. But until then, I just miss the old times, I guess.
Number 4.
He moved to LA, started continually posting shit about how awesome Cali is, etc. Started turning into very one-sided communication channel, but always was a OMG, come out to LA bro, it's so chill. I did. He met for one day after showing up 5 hours late. 3 years later I was in Vegas, and turns out he was too. We agreed to meet up, he didn't show, continually ignored my messages yet still posted in Instagram stories, etc. Next day he texted me saying he fell down an escalator, passed out, and had his wallet stolen, and all his friends drove back to LA without him, and he's stuck. I left him on read. I believe he got deported for outstaying his visa and illegally working.
Number 3.
He became a gaslighting narcissist who attempted to use me any way possible for his own personal gain on the pettiest levels imaginable. It reached a point I would instantly become in a bad mood when he came around, because I had to put my defenses up, or else he would walk all over me. Just to make himself feel superior, for whatever reason. He wasn't always like that, but grew that way over time. He would even somehow find a way to make my friends, my joy, and my achievements, his. Like, it's honestly amazing someone is capable of that level of manipulation. It's actually impressive.
Number 2.
He married my ex-wife, that he was best man at our wedding. Found out much later, after we obviously stopped talking, that he had been F-king her for years behind my back. All while being a bro for me, and fellow army vet, dealing with my post-Iraq issues.
Number 1.
Having your best friend of 20 years that you did everything for her. There for her through cancer when her boyfriend of many years dipped out. Letting her stay with me in my home with her son when said boyfriend split because she lost her house, never making her pay rent or anything so she could save to get back on her feet. Then when I needed her when my marriage fell apart, she did everything in her power to make my life a living hell. My dad had to buy my house to keep from losing it because when ex left, finding he had not been paying mortgage. Then the power got turned off, so my dad, since the house now was in his name, put the power in his name so I didn't have to cough everything at that time owed and the new $300 DEP they now required. So she knew all this because I talked to her about anything. She actually called the power company, telling them I still lived there and my dad had just put the power in his name to keep me from paying. I went through a tough depression. She called my doctor and a lot of my family members, telling them I was suicidal, which I was not at all. She called animal control, saying my dogs I was neglecting, and while I was at work they came to my house and took my dogs from my yard and left me a note. All which was a lie, because 3 days later, they left a note on my door again saying that the dogs were healthy and that I could come at any time to get my dogs. So like I said, she looked for anything and everything she could try to hurt me for no reason. We did not speak again for 8 years until one day she showed up at my job to tell me her cancer had returned and it was terminal. She told me she was sorry and she didn't know she did what she did, but that she was jealous of me. I accept the apology and decided to be present in her life for the last year of her life, but things were not the same and was very guarded around her.
Thank you for watching. If you like to watch more of these videos, please leave a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and don't forget to share to your friends and family. I'll see you in the next video.